Rocket to Insanity. A story inspired by Sergeant Sprinkle's Cupcakes fanfic, read out loud by Gonzo Jam Mindless Productions. Warning. The following contains material that may be sensitive to some listeners. Murder, gore, death, whatnot. Discretion is advised. Or, simply put, if you don't like death, get the hell out. There is evil within the hearts of all ponies. Such is the balance of nature. Good can only be prevalent for so long before evil musters its forces and seizes upon the heart, twisting friendship into war, loyalty into deceit, and kindness unto unadulterated hate. Unknown author, 622BL. Screams echo through the cloud palace of Rainbow Dash's home. The filly startled, wide awake in a cold sweat, terror surging through her veins. Nightmares. Again. The 7th time this month. And it was always the same one. The one with the cupcakes. Flashes of memory lance through her head. Wings being hacked off, then ripped from their sockets. Needles plunged into her beating heart, adrenaline injected into her body to keep her awake and alert as the torture went on. The smell of her own flesh cooking, the sight of her own blood and gore spilling from her surgically incised belly, the mastermind behind her terror, toying with those glistening organs like they were party favors. She knew in her heart that Pinkie Pie would never be capable of doing such a gruesome act. But that thought didn't help make the dreams any less vivid. The Pegasus pony sobbed openly, curling up in her blanket and rocking back and forth as her body trembled with fear. She hasn't told anyone about the dreams, about the lingering feel of steel, piercing flesh, and blade-cutting bone. Her work had suffered because of the constant night terrors, the nightmares being so powerful that she was simply afraid of going back to sleep. Some nights staying up altogether in an attempt to stave off the horrors for just one more night. And every pony wondered why she spent most of her days napping in the open, in the daylight. Because in the shining brilliance of the sun it was the only way she could actually rest. But even then, the black clutches of her fear-addled subconscious had begun to creep even into that relative safety, following her through the dream world. Dash whimpered as tears streaked down her face, staining the fur of her cheeks as wide eyes darted around the darkened scenery of her room, heart pounding into her chest as breath came before hiccuping sobs, her wings clinging tight against her form as paranoia began to clutch at the edges of her mind. Shadows lurched and moved in her peripheral vision. Routine natural noises become distorted and echoing through her mind as adrenaline surged through her shivering form. This wasn't healthy. Her mind was slowly breaking under the horrors of her subconscious mind, things that no pony should ever even have the slightest thought about, chipping away at her psyche. She was starting to crack.
Rainbow Dash! Rainbow Dash! Hey, has anybody seen Rainbow Dash around?
Applejack trotted through the streets of Ponyville, looking high and low for the town's resident speedster pony. Bystanders just shook their hair and shrugged.
Horse feathers! Figures that pony's nowhere to be seen when you really need her.
The cow pony sighed and continued on through town, hoofbeats kicking up dust as she looked up to the sky for the Pegasus pony.
Consarn it, Rainbow Dash, where in the wild world of Equestria are you?
A long yawn from the branches of a tree behind her met her answer. The pony in question dipping a head down and gazing at Applejack from an upside-down position.
What, Applejack? What is it that's so important you gotta interrupt my napping?
The western pony stamped a hoof on the ground, scowling at the Pegasus.
Now you know just why I'm making a fuss and finding you. You said you were going to bring over a little rainstorm for the crops at Sweet Apple Acres nearly 2 hours ago. Instead, I find you here in a tree, snoozing your little behind off.
Dash gave a groan, slipping out of the tree and landing on her hooves, shaking her head. She looked more deceitful than usual, her mane a mess, dark bags under her eyes from many a sleepless night. She looked pale, sickly almost, yet still tried to put on an air of cheerfulness. She heaved a yawn before giving a dismissive wave to Applejack.
Yeah, keep your saddle on. Ugh, I'll get right on it now. Sorry and stuff.
As the Pegasus pony turned and spread her wings to take off, Applejack tilted her head to the side and gave a little frown.
Dash, you feeling okay? You look a little, under the weather.
Dash grumped, shrugging her shoulders as she gave her wings a little test flap.
I'm fine,
was the only response from the Pegasus pony. The cow pony behind her stepped forward, giving Dash's side a little nudge with her snout.
You sure about that?
She was cut off by the Pegasus, suddenly jerking away from Applejack, darting up into the air as her eyes went wide.
Don't touch me. I'm fine. Honest, just...
She nearly spilled the beans right then and there, but refrained. She couldn't take the chance that the other pony might think different of her because she was being scared out of her mind every night by some stupid nightmare. Her body gave a little shiver as Applejack looked on with concern.
I gotta go.
Before Applejack could say anything further, Dash was off like a rocket towards Sweet Apple Acres, leaving the cow pony just scratch her head in confusion.
That girl ain't right.
Another terror-filled night. Dash laid curled up on the floor of her cloud house, blankets swathed around her shivering form. It was worse this time. She had been flayed open, set upon the dining table of the Pink Earth pony, as slabs of her own meat, dripping with her life fluids, was sheared from her flanks, served to all of her friends, herself still somehow alive enough to be aware of the entire situation. Hearing the laughter as they devoured her living form, as fork and knife dug into her innards, tearing her apart, she was nothing more than a slab of meat for her friends' enjoyment. Hiccups punctured through heavy sobs as the Pegasus pony clutched at her head. The visions that her nightmares had been visiting upon her ingrained within her memory. Every horrible detail, from the fiery pain of rendered flesh to the sickening sounds of innards being torn and ripped out of her belly, was cast in vivid depiction. She whined as she laid curled tightly upon the floor, sniffling as tears gushed from her eyes.
Just leave me alone. Why won't you leave me alone?
She hiccuped, rocking back and forth.
I don't deserve this. Just stay out. Stay out of my head. Get out of my head, please. Stay out. Just get out of my head.
Fear turned to anger, Dash beating her hooves against her temples.
Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out. Get out.
She wept openly, grinding her forehead against the floor of her room. Hooves pounding and pounding at her head, bruising the flesh as pent-up frustration and sleep deprivation, and erupted in an agonized scream of rage and sorrow. Another night, another crack in the window. Every pony had noticed it. It was the way she walked, the way she talked. Her body language just screamed it. Gone was Rainbow Dash, that cheerful, brash speedster, replaced by some hollow shell. She drifted aimlessly around Ponyville, as weeks of interrupted sleep had taken its toll upon her. All of her friends knew that something was up, but none of them knew exactly what to do. She had pushed them away when they had tried to confront her, lashing out like a wounded animal any time they tried to console her or plead her to get help. Too headstrong, some would say. Too proud, the others still. But none of them realized the gravity of the situation until that one fateful day. The day Rainbow Dash finally snapped.